How you doing today? This is Gregory calling from By George. I've been with the company for 22 years. We started making cheesesteaks in 2008. We were doing just pizza and lasagnas and Italian food. Cheesesteak business on 11th Street went out of business, so we started to make cheesesteaks in 2008, and after that we soared. We really soared with the cheesesteaks, and it's 2021, and we're doing really good with cheesesteaks, and we're going to continue making cheesesteaks really well. Again, this is Greg from By George.
By George Reading Terminal. Reading Terminal is one of those places, when I go there, I'm like, why don't I spend more time at the Reading Terminal? Especially, probably the best deal in the city is the parking deal at the Reading Terminal. $5 for 2 hours, get your ticket validated when you spend more than $10 at a vendor. And By George, this is a good cheesesteak. And again, By George is a good cheesesteak, and whenever I get their cheesesteak, I always ask myself, why don't I get By George's cheesesteak more often? Very good cheesesteak, and I'd never been to the other side of the counter. I didn't realize I had all this other great food. Great stop at the Reading Terminal, By George.
March Cheesesteak Madness. Reading Terminal, take 3. Yes, 3 times I hit the wrong button. All right, here we are, Philadelphia, beautiful market. Here we are, By George, Reading Terminal.
This looks like a great cheesesteak.
It does. Cheese throughout.
And there's tons of cheese.
Tons of cheese.
Mixed evenly.
Seeded roll. The onions are flavorful. I don't see any mushrooms yet. Ooh, look at that. That's a ton of cheese.
I see the mushrooms.
I see them.
Fresh mushrooms. They're bigger pieces, but they're nice and thin.
Mm-hmm. The onions are sweet.
Let me see the meat here. No, I would agree. The meat itself, I don't even know if it's seasoned, but
I don't think it is.
the sandwich eats great because there's so much cheese. It's nicely seasoned.
But the onions and mushrooms taste good. So I think that that's adding flavor to the meat, but there is no seasoning on the meat.
I agree.
The meat could use a little seasoning. Yeah.
But I'm loving it. Good cheesesteak.
Yeah.
Well, the judges work on their scores. We have a special guest, Ethan, and he's on break from school. So we're not taking him out of school. All child, school, and labor laws have been adhered to. No children have been harmed in this video. What do you think?
It's good.
It's good?
Yeah.
Nice. Is it worth missing? Is it worth using your whole break to eat?
Yeah, probably.
Very good.
Usually I don't really do much.
Don't say that on camera.
Saad's Halal House, Philadelphia, PA. A good spot tucked away over there on 45th and Walnut. It's a long video, so I'm going to go right to the judges.
March Cheesesteak Madness. Lovely March day in Philadelphia, 45th and Walnut. Wow, I just saw the trim on those windows for the first time. Pretty cool. Saad's Halal House. Holla at me, Saad.
Canned mushrooms. It has a different kind of flavor. What is that?
It's a seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Middle Eastern, but
Really? No.
that's what, being halal and Saad, it's just where my mind goes.
The cheese is on the bottom, not on the top, so it's not all the way through.
Right. Toasted roll. The roll's nice.
The meat is good.
Yeah, it's a tasty sandwich.
I wish it didn't have canned mushrooms. And I wish the cheese was a little bit more spread throughout.
Yeah, I agree. Otherwise, a good sandwich. The meat's pretty finely chopped, thinly shaved, finely chopped.
Not greasy,
No.
not fatty.
You tell her.
Cheese is different.
I think it's American, I think.
It is American, but
But it's just on the bottom, so just not an even eating experience.
No, it's like I just want to eat the bottom of it, not the top.
Exactly like them.
That's what I would do.
But the meat is tasty. There's
is.
that spice blend that it's not that, kind of general standard cheesesteak flavor of the meat and the onions and cheese. There's something that
I like the
kind of
toast on the
cuts
roll
through it.
too.
The roll is toasted roll. Very, very nice. I was saying to Jim before that I never thought of a cheesesteak needing to be on a toasted roll. It just never came up in my conscience. But having eaten sandwiches now and had the toasted, non-toasted, a toasted roll adds an element of texture. The warmth, it kind of distinguishes the chewiness on the inside of the roll from the crisp outside. So
Yeah.
I'm digging the toast.
I really just wish it had more cheese. Dan would have been happy with this one because it's not so cheesy.
Yep.
Not so cheesy.
And the rolls cut exactly down the middle.
It's cut exactly. He would really like that roll. George versus Saad Halal Restaurant. By George was the first one of the day. A seeded roll, a Karanji roll. Big fan of a Karanji roll. It was chopped well. It's a little stringy the meat, but could have used some flavor, maybe some salt and pepper. But it was very cheesy. It was cheesy throughout, and I just lost my train of thought. The onions and the mushrooms were chopped well. So the meat didn't really have a lot of flavor, but the mushrooms and onions did have a lot of flavor. So together, I feel like it kind of combined to make like a really good cheesesteak.
Yeah, it was a very good cheesesteak. The meat was thinly sliced. It was chopped up. So you said stringy. I didn't have that same experience, but I agree that it wasn't seasoned, and so even though I thought the meat had potential, the lack of seasoning brought it down a little bit. It was saved by the cheese and the mushrooms and onions. Lots of cheese mixed entirely throughout. The mushrooms were fresh, thinly sliced. The onions were nicely even and kind of a small dice, so they were in there, but not in your face. They were lightly cooked, had a little bit of bite, but cooked enough to not have that raw flavor come through.
It ate really well. It ate like a really good traditional cheesesteak. So then that is up against Saad Halal Restaurant. Interesting spot. Was not expecting that that's where we were going to go to try a cheesesteak. But their quality of meat on this sheet was very good. It had a seasoning to it. I want to say like Mediterranean, almost like a sweet tang to their meat, which was tasty. The roll was not toasted, not seeded, not really sure what kind of roll it was. We didn't actually get that information, but the cheese was okay. It was on the bottom only though, so American cheese, it wasn't throughout the entire sandwich, so I really would have loved to have seen that. I feel like it would have been a much better sandwich because the meat was of a higher quality and it tasted so well. Good mushrooms and onions, a good amount of mushrooms and onions. Didn't really wow me as far as the seasoning go on that, but I mean, again, I think that this one would have eaten better if it had the cheese throughout. Like, that's kind of my problem with this one.
Yeah, I thought it was a very tasty cheesesteak. The meat itself, it had that very unique flavoring on it. Don't know what it was, but it made me think of like shawarma or like something like that along that style.
Had a sweeter taste to it.
Yeah. And so it was delicious, and it actually worked really well with the American cheese. The mushrooms were canned. The onions, again, small dice, and they were in there. A good sandwich, but the uniqueness of it, the flavor and the meat, detracted from what I like to think of as when I eat a cheesesteak, what I think of, I almost do look for that like good execution of a standard product, and this was just kind of a bit of a spin on it. Very tasty.
A good entry, a surprising entry. Out in West Philly, but if I had to pick between the two of them for this bracket,
And you do. You have
by
to
George,
pick.
you have it.
By George.
By George, you've got it.
By George, I agree.
Oh, by George.
By George.
Moving on to the next
Moving
round.
on.